Hello and a warm welcome back to the Winning Mentality podcast, the show getting the stories behind sporting success. Today's episode is all about cycling and is sponsored by BICMO, insurance that speaks bike. Does cycling mean more to you than getting from A to B? The feeling of freedom, pulse rising, passing through epic landscapes, body and bike work as one? It doesn't matter if you're pushing for a KOM, feeling the flow of the trail, cycling with your family, getting to your next meeting, or aiming for your first medal. The team at BICMO get it. Their mission is to protect the world's riders with award-winning insurance, built by riders that's quicker than fixing a flat. As if all that doesn't sound good enough, BICMO are the official provider of bike insurance to British cycling. They're rated the #1 insurer by Bike Radar, hold the FIFO Gold Trusted Award, and hold de facto 4-star and 5-star ratings for their UK Plus and race products. Get a quick quote now at bicmo.com and use the code WINNINGMENTALITY to get an exclusive 5% discount or £20 cycle surgery voucher when you take out a policy. So, my guest this week is a cyclist who claimed Olympic bronze in Athens in 2004, who won the Belgian National Road Racing Championships in 2000, and who also took a stage win in the Giro d'Italia. As if all that wasn't enough, he competed in no less than 8 Tour de France and was the highest-ranked Belgian on 6 occasions. I'm talking, of course, about Axel Merckx, now head of a cycling team and resident of Kelowna, Canada. I was in Kelowna and messaged Axel asking if he'd be keen to appear on the podcast because I knew he'd have an amazing story to tell. To my delight, he said yes, and you are about to understand why I was so happy to pin him down for a chat. You will hear what it was like when his dad's legendary hour record was broken, how life in the peloton compares to life as a team boss, and what it was like to be in the Motorola team of the mid-90s with Lance Armstrong, George Hincapie, and the nucleus of the team that would go on to redefine cycling dominance in the early 2000s. So, let's get to Kelowna. Axel, welcome to the show. We're sitting on your deck overlooking, what's the lake here?
Okanagan Lake.
Okanagan Lake. The vineyards of Kelowna are behind, the lake's in front, the mountains are laid out. Where did it all go wrong?
I guess it started with my wife. She was raised here. She wasn't born here, but she was raised here. She moved here when she was 3, and towards the end of my career, we came back here a couple of times to visit her family, and thought, since we had young children and young kids, it would be a safe environment to raise our kids in a healthy environment. So off to Kelowna in Canada I went, packed my bags, and here we are.
What's life like over here for a European? What do you miss from back home?
I'd say being able to go to the football every weekend, maybe. That's one of the things, because I like football.
Who's
soccer.
Your team?
Well, I used to play for Anderlecht when I was young. So my dad came home one day when I was 6 years old and announced to me that he signed me up for a football team, Anderlecht, and I didn't even know the ball was round at that point. But he wanted me to do some sport, and he got me in there, and fell in love with it, and played with Anderlecht until I was 15 and a half, and then I started racing my bike.
Why did you give up the football? Do you realize you weren't going to make the cut, or just ran out of passion?
Well, as you know, I mean, I'm a Belgian league, right? But still, Anderlecht is a pretty big team. It's a pretty big deal in Belgium. At least it was. Maybe not as much now, but we'll come back. It would become more and more competitive. I was playing the U16 at that point, and it was becoming, getting benched a couple of times and little aggressive tackles, and quite honestly, I mean, I was an okay player. I was never going to make the English Premiership, Premier League or anything like that. But I loved it and I enjoyed it. But it was just becoming not fair. As in, you practice, you train 4 or 5 times a week, and then you get benched the whole game. And I vividly remember one day I got frustrated and I got off the field and I was benched the whole game, and I walked across the field and I think my mom was there for sure. I don't know if my dad was there too. And I looked at her straight in the eye and said, "In cycling, there's no benches." And I kind of
good line.
It was like everybody gets a number and everybody has a shot at it, and I thought that was more fair. And obviously I I love cycling too. I used to watch all the races. Was passionate about it because my dad had a bike factory, and I was a big fan of the teams he was sponsoring, and then just got in touch with a couple, pros back then, and just fell in love with it, and thought, well, the heck, why not try? And then it just went from there.
So you weren't riding that much when you were a young kid, sort of under 16?
Well, I rode a couple times. Well, not a couple times, a few times. When I was very young, I rode quite a bit around the block, as you say. I was doing the little time trials and the little parkour in the backyard where I grew up. And I guess one year when I was really young, and I don't remember that, but my parents and my mom told me that Roger de Vlaming came to our house, and he saw there was a big steep downhill at the bottom. It was a huge tree. And I was just used to riding my bike, and I would go down the big steep hill, and the last second I would just avoid the tree. And he's like, "You better put a helmet on your child because you're gonna kill him." He's like, "Oh, he does it all the time." So I was that kind of games and fun games on the bike, and I think so. I always enjoyed it, and I rode my bike a few times with my dad growing up, and I remember suffering many times in his wheel and almost crying.
I can believe that.
Yes, he was a pretty good rider.
Yeah, I heard he was okay.
But I think it was in a way for him to teach me how to suffer on a bike and to try to turn me off of a bike. I think.
Did he not want you to be a cyclist?
Yeah, I think he wanted me to realize how hard cycling is and how much pain you can endure riding a bike. And I remember like sometimes even crying in his wheel, just like, please kind of stop. And
I don't think you were the only person to cry on his wheel, actually.
After the fact, I realized that, but then I remember also getting off my bike and just wanted to do it again because, growing up, my dad was such an icon, and he still is. And everywhere you go with him or any occasions you spend with him in public, you have to share him with everybody else. And I think I realized that point in my. It was the only time that I could almost have him by myself, one-on-one. It's just going ride a bike, the two of us, and those memories will last, forever. Those are the best times, and I remember growing up. Every time something went on, it was the best place to talk. Let's go for a bike ride. Let's go ride, and then after 15, 20 minutes, we start talking about anything and everything, right? So I guess it's therapy, but it's more of a relationship, lifelong.
And what, other than what you just said, where it enabled you to talk to your dad, were you passionate about being on the bike, the feeling of the wind in your hair, or the competition, or was it very much a hobby initially?
I think it was very much a hobby originally. I don't think I was that attracted to racing necessarily, because I did realize it was a very hard sport and it was maybe not the easiest path to go to. And quite honestly, my dream was to play football. And that was my dream growing up. When you asked me 10, 12 years old, I wanted to be, the next Anderlecht star player and playing the UEFA Cup or Champions League that we call it now. That was my dream, but I still enjoy riding my bike and watching the races. And I was able to go and see some races to the France and meet Bernard Hinault and those kind of icons of cycling, which I was privileged to be able to, and it kind of relit the fire every once in a while, going to the Tour de France and watching that big event.
When did you realize that life was going to be different for you because of your surname? Because I mean, I guess even when you were playing football, people must have been interested in you and your dad, and look over at the sideline and there's, can we say, the most famous Belgian sportsman of all time?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, did you realize quite early on that life was going to be different for you? You were going to be looked at in a way that others weren't.
Yeah, but I think I think we were protected from from my mom and to begin with, from my dad also. But when I realized the most is when I think it's the year, I can't remember exactly the date, but when Moser broke the AR record. And I was playing the next weekend with Anderlecht, and we were playing, and there was parents of the opposing team started chanting Moser's name on the sideline, and it was directed to me.
Now, how old are you at this time?
And I think I was I don't know if I was 12 years old, maybe 11,
No.
12 years old. And I was very frustrated because for whatever reason, I had a really sentimental value to the hour record because it was in 72. I was born in 72. So, I mean, for what it is, I was really attached to it. And when he broke it, I remember I broke down crying because he broke it. And so I was really upset about it to begin with. And then went to the soccer game, and I think we had a rough game, and they were pretty aggressive, and they started chanting his name, and I lost it. I just broke down crying and walked off the field, and I didn't walk off the field. I stayed on the field, but I'm not an aggressive guy. I was almost ready to go have it with them. So I got in trouble with my parents about it, but it was that's when I realized really the effect of how people can be aggressive, but I have to be stronger than that, really.
Football's a hard game to love sometimes, hey? You can't really imagine that behavior anywhere else.
Yeah, well, it's pretty emotional. I mean, you just have
Yeah.
to go to a football stadium and see the fans and some emotional reactions of certain fans, and it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. But so when you started pursuing cycling a bit more seriously, what was the journey?
Oh,
You started taking it seriously when you were sort of 15, 16?
Well, I've always had the mentality from home is that when you do something, you got to do it right. Or
Yeah.
you gotta invest yourself fully into it. Don't do it halfway, because then you're wasting everybody's time. And if you want to do it for fun, that's fine. But then it won't be as committed as it could be, I guess. But what I realized right away is the interest, obviously, of the press. Like I remember doing, I think my third or fourth race was provincial championships, and there was a motorbike with a camera on it, just taking pictures of me. And I don't know, it was third or fourth race, so I was in there, but I was suffering, and I was not doing anything. I was not going to do any results. But then I think it got the attention of other guys also, and fair enough. It wasn't fair for them that I got all the attention, but I didn't ask for it also. And I think it just kind of, over the youth categories of racing in Belgium, was tough because I had no freedom. And I grew up really fast in a really short period of time, so I was frail and not really strong. But I could go forever. I had great endurance, but I couldn't make the difference. And for me to win a race was just very, very difficult.
When did you start to realize that this was a career?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. I guess when I went to it was a struggle to go to the World Championship in Oslo as an amateur, so U23. I didn't get selected at first, but then basically half of the Belgian national team had injuries and sick, and finally there was nobody else basically, so they took me, and I had a really good race. I was there, and I performed really well, and I was really happy with it, and I figured that was my not my goal to go international, because the level is so high that you can't really be marked, and then there's more freedom, and I said the more I go abroad, the better it's going to be for me. So luckily I was able to race internationally at that point, and then a couple of years later I just turned pro.
That was the one Armstrong one, wasn't it? Oslo?
Well, he was with the pros. I was with the amateurs.
Ah, right,
and
okay.
Actually, Jan Ulrich won that one.
He won your one.
So he won. Yeah, mine, I guess.
Okay.
And Lance won the pro. Yeah, I remember
Right.
that.
I tried to get Jan on the podcast, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I interviewed a friend of his, Stefan Vučković,
Okay.
who won the silver in the triathlon in Sydney,
Mm-hmm.
but no joy.
No.
Jan, if you're listening to this, man,
Yeah.
give me a shout.
It'd be a really cool one too.
He'd have a story to tell.
Yes, absolutely. But a great talent too. I mean, he is still an amazing athlete.
Yeah, he's one of those frustrating guys, hey, where he could have had more.
Well, I think you could have Gimondi on the podcast too, and ask him the same questions, because he came in the era when Eddie Merckx was there, and he won everything, and Gimondi was just starting to win everything, and then my dad came around and just swoop everything from underneath him.
No, it's true. It's true. I just remember looking back. There were my early days of watching the Tour, and Ulrich just sometimes turning up overweight, or just never quite it just never quite felt like he did everything he could. But I guess that's true. There's so many people, ifs and buts and
Yeah,
maybes. But he's one of those people that when I think about him, it's kind of frustrating.
yeah. But he's to me he's an unbelievable talent too. And did he get everything out of his career that he could? That's a question that you have to ask him, because like at the end of the day, one of my goals as an athlete when I was a bike rider, and actually my dad's. I'm going to call him old one year, but he was with him all his life and give him massages. And he always told me, he's like, your cycling career and your career is only 10, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, some longer. But if you just do it 100% till the last day, because you don't want to have regrets. The day you turn the page and you move on, you just want to look back and say, I did everything I can to be the best I could. And that's really what you need to accomplish in your career, I think.
Do you feel that way when you look back on your career?
Yes, I can say 100%. I know I've lived for it. I grew up with it, and maybe sometimes too much. Sometimes you want it too much, and you overtrain yourself, or you over diet yourself, or you try to push you a little bit too far, and then you pay the price for it, physically but also emotionally. To take a step back. Ironically, sometimes the best races I had is when I had maybe of a setback before, but also more of a mental break just before that, and kind of tells you, looking back, that I should have maybe had that more often. But I have no regrets, because that's what I believe. That's my lifestyle.
What's the hardest thing about being a professional cyclist? Because it just seems a brutal way to live. I always look at a professional cyclist, I think, where's the easy day?
Yeah.
Can't get around the fact you've got to be on your bike for 5 hours a day.
Well, it's just passion for it. You just love it or you don't. I mean, I have two daughters, and they're both swimmers, and especially my older daughter, she's a competitive swimmer, and I don't understand it. I don't get it. How you
Your family don't choose easy sports.
No. How can you, and I ask them both, and how can you be in a pool for hours and looking at the blue line at the bottom of the pool and go back and forth and it's just you can't explain it. It's just something you love, and you just go for it.
So did you find it hard as a lifestyle, or were you just so into it that it was almost a pleasure to be on a diet and training, and do you get a kick out of it?
No, the diets was the hard.
Yeah.
Well, that was the hardest part. You train hours and hours, and you still have to watch what you eat. That's basically, I wouldn't say that's what made me stop, but that's definitely a big factor. I was kind of sick of starving and being hungry, and not. There's more knowledge about it now than when I was racing, I think, and which is great. But back when it was like all about diet and be as skinny as you can and at least lean as you can, and mentally it's really tough.
What was the science back then? Just don't eat anything.
Figure it out.
Just don't eat.
Don't eat. Don't eat. Figure it out. Try this. Try that. I guess. In trying to get to a certain weight, as light as you could be, and sometimes it's too light, and then you just collapse. But there's. I mean, you can't compare it to what it is now, I guess.
And what's racing like? Tell me what it's like to be in a peloton. What was it David Miller said at the end of his book? I think he dedicated it to the peloton, and it said something like, for whatever time I have left with you, I love you, but you can be so cruel. Something along those lines. What's it like being in the peloton?
Well, it depends on what day, really. It depends on the circumstance, depends on the weather, it depends on what kind of race it is, and it's very, it can be very hectic. It could be very social too at times.
Is it openly competitive?
No, I don't think it's. I mean, yeah, we are competitive, and when the race is on, There's no gifts. There's you fight for every inch, especially the first week of the Tour de France, when everybody tells you have to be in the front. That's just absolutely chaos. Every day you go to war. But then, I always say that like Grand Tours is the first week everybody's fighting with each other for position, and you don't give each other an inch. And by the third week, everybody's letting everybody go because they're so tired. It's like, no, please go ahead. At this point, it doesn't really matter anymore. But I think there's a lot of, I mean, I'm talking for 1 hour's racing. There was a lot of respect with each other, and there's crashes and there's dangerous moves and stuff like that. But overall it's pretty social, I think.
Do you miss being in the peloton and the buzz of being a professional athlete and being in the center of it in that way?
Well, I'm pretty fortunate because with running the Hagensberg Action team, it's kind of like I'm still in it. I'm not in the peloton, but at the same time, I get the winch wipers and the air conditioning car when it's too hot or too cold, and the heater. So but I still have the team spirit about it. You still compete in a way, and you motivate your riders or the staff, or you still part of the team. It's something that I think is very difficult for athletes when they retire. Is just that void, that goal that you have year in year out. You always train for something. You always have a goal, and with this team and what I do is I still have that in my life very much.
Is that the best part of the job, kind of being in the team and all pulling in the same direction?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, my background is football, and I think I got a lot from my signature. How can I say it? The way I run my team is a lot like that. So you race as a team, you win as a team, you lose as a team. Obviously, there's one individual that might win the race, but if you work with each other, the wheel will turn, and it'll be your turn the next time. If you really truly work as a team, you're much stronger than if you were trying to go play your own card all the time.
Is the buzz the same now as a team manager when there's a big result? I mean, I'm looking at your career. You won the Belgian National Road Racing Championships 2000. You won a stage in the Giro. What's the buzz like now versus when it was you on the bike?
I mean, the buzz is the buzz. It's very intense when you win as an athlete, for sure. But the next day you have to start all over. Especially in the Giro. Nationals is a little bit different. You can enjoy it a little longer, maybe.
Yeah, you can bask in it a bit.
But again, you turn the page and you got to move on, because the week after, or the day after, or the week after, 2 weeks after, you have something else, and you have to plan and you have to go ahead. As a manager, you do have the same goals, but I mean, instead of having 1 glass of wine, maybe I'll have 3 at night. So that's, I guess, the biggest difference between the two. But I'm pretty emotional in the car when the team wins. I'm pretty excited. I gotta say, I can be pretty vocal.
What was the happiest time of your cycling career?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, as a result, being on Olympic podium is something that any kid's athlete dreams of.
That was in Athens,
That's
right?
in Athens, 2004. I think that was probably the international highlight of my career, and the most recognition I get still now, to be on the podium and to have an Olympic medal. To me, the most impressive win that I did is the stage in Dauphiné. I was by myself for 105 Ks, and I won by 2.5 minutes. That was, to me personally, I was the most proud of my victories. But then wearing your Belgium national jersey for 1 year is something very special as a Belgian. But I think as every citizen of any country, but the happiest time, I mean, I can find something positive in a lot of teams that I went to. I really enjoy the Motorola days.
What was that, mid-90s?
95, 96. We were a bunch of young guys that, went and took on the international cycling world with a U.S. brand and U.S. team with Hincapie, Julik, Livingston, Lance, obviously, as a leader. And we had a great time. We had Alkovic as a manager, and he, to me, was something new. Is something totally different. I come from the old school Belgium cycling where everything is traditional and I wouldn't say there's no joking around, because that's not fair to say, but it was just a different approach, and I really much enjoyed that. And that's when I met my wife too, so I guess it made it very special.
You have to talk more about those years, because that was the core group, including Alkovic, I guess, being part of it, that went on to dominate cycling. what were Lance and George and who else was on the team at that stage?
Bobby Julich was on the team, and Kevin Livingston was there. Yeah.
Okay, a lot of the guys that then went on to be a big part of US Postal. What were they like then? Were they just kind of clueless Americans coming over? Because that's the way it's kind of painted, that they came over.
I wouldn't say they were clueless Americans. They were. I mean, I'm still friends with them. Or at least I'd like to call them friends still. And every time we see each other, we talk from back in the days, and it's. I don't know. It's hard to explain. To me, it was a really refreshing way of looking at cycling. I've been there for a long time, and then for them, it was like I wouldn't say an eye opener, because those guys had already some international experience with the USA Cycling and stuff like that. But it was top level racing, and just a bunch of young guys, that would go on, and we had Max Shanry also on the team, which was more the traditional Italian with a little bit of a American accent to it, that would give a little bit more the structure. And we went on and finished second of the World Cup that year for a team that not considered the great team. But I have to give a lot of credit to Jim Markovic for sure for that. Also, we had Annie Carpenter as the director, which is not nobody also in cycling, and racing for Lance, he was a great motivator.
Was he team leader at that time?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But this was pre-cancer.
Yes. Yeah. He was world champion in 193, I guess. And then as a couple of years later, he was obviously the team captain, but he was a great motivator. He could bring the troops up for sure.
I know he was world champion then, but he was a cyclist, and then he became Lance Armstrong, the brand, one of the most famous sports people in the world. Could you tell he was special even back then in the pre-cancer? Because to an American public, I guess, the pre-cancer days they don't know much about. Was he special then?
Yeah, I remember the first time I heard of his name. To be honest, I was still so obviously amateur. I think it was he just turned pro with Motorola, and he went to the GP Zurich, and he finished second, and Ekimov won. And my dad was at the race because my dad was sponsoring the team. And I still remember my dad coming home, and he's like, holy shit, that guy is special. That guy can ride a bike. To be able to do that at his age is pretty amazing. And I remember racing through the L'Avenir against him. That was the first time I kind of met him. And then, the rest is when we became teammates. But yeah.
And what was it like when he came back? That must have been a crazy period for cycling, because cycling's always been, it's not been one of the biggest sports in the world if you compare it to, say, soccer. But during those Armstrong years, the whole profile and the whole feel of the tour must have been different, was it?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. He's still a rock star to me. He's still an icon for sure. And he brought cycling to a level that wasn't comparable before. He brought, the rock star. He was dating a rock star by then. So but he did bring that to the Tour de France and open it up to the world and improve some brands across cycling. No doubt about it.
What were your feelings towards him at the time? Because I know he didn't. There were some people he got on with in the peloton, and some he didn't. Was there almost a split in the peloton of people who were with him or against him, or was everyone just grateful, a bit like Tiger Woods? How if you raise it for everyone. What was the general feeling of the peloton in those years towards Lance?
Well, I'm not going to talk about anybody else. I can talk only about me. I don't know. I'm not going to talk in the name of anybody else. I always consider Lance, and Lance knows that. To me, Lance is Lance. He was never the 7-time Tour de France winner. He was Lance because I've known him before, and I've known him during cancer. I've known him post cancer, and I don't know. I've always told him my opinion. I was very close to maybe join his team at some point, and things went sideways. And then it was too bad, but I voiced my opinion. And although he was the big ride at that point, I was pretty upset, and I told him what I thought.
When was this?
I think it was 2004.
Okay.
So I was in a contract, and I was negotiating with Johan actually about the contract, and there was talks about me going there,
This is Discovery.
and then didn't happen, and I was pretty pissed off at the time. But I've always voiced my opinion with him, and after his comeback, and before his comeback, when he decided to make a comeback, and he wanted to have a development team started. He called me, and he said, because I think the story was great with Taylor Finney, and to be able to mentor him, also the son of a great champion American idol, and he called me, and I was very honored and pleased, and he gave me the the push that allowed me to be where I am today, and I'm really grateful and very happy about it. We brought this team a whole way from a blank page when we started it, and it's pretty cool to see all those young talents out there, and watching the Giro like we watched lately, and also Tour de France or Big Classic, and you see some of our alumni in there. This is something very fulfilling, and very something that I'm very proud of. But I also don't forget that it's also because of Lance that the team was created also.
Yeah, I think there's some parallels with Tiger Woods where he gets a hard time for well-publicized issues, same as Tiger. But the reality is, everybody in cycling was changed, certainly financially, for the better by his presence.
Not 300%, absolutely.
So how did you get into team management? When you retired, did you know you wanted to stay in the sport?
No, I mean, I wanted to stay in the sport. I mean, my father-in-law told me one day, I may rest in peace. He told me that in life you have a trade, and if you're good at that trade, keep doing that trade because it will last forever. And don't try to change from it, because this then you put yourself in a very awkward situation, a very risky situation. And I never forgot that. But also, cycling is my life. I mean, I grew up with it. I was born in it. I'll probably die in it, and that's fine. And I love it. I can watch stages of the Giro and get excited still as I was 25 years ago. It's something that I'm really passionate about. I'm very proud also that I'm able to do something for the future, and to build something for the future in cycling. My dad is the most known, the biggest icon that cycling will ever have in my mind, and I'm biased, but that's what I truly believe. And he will leave an undeniable legacy behind him, and I'm just trying to be a little piece of dust somewhere in the legacy, and leave my mark in a way that I'm trying to make cycling a better place also by teaching the young generation to be not well-known cycling, but good cyclists, and cyclists for life.
So explain to non-cycling fans what level your team is at, what the purpose of the team is, because people won't have seen your guys on the tour.
Yeah. So we are actually, by definition, we are a development team. So we only hires that are 22 and younger. So a U23 development team. We are this year with a pro continental status, which is the second division team, if you want to call it like that, which is not easy. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of commitment. But we are working really on the pre-generation of World Tour riders. Basically, we're trying to funnel the best way we can and prepare the riders the best way we can, so they can be noticed by the World Tour teams. They can be picked up by the World Tour team and become World Tour riders at a high level, and to make the transition easier, but also to be noticed and to be picked up to the big World Tour teams.
Give me an insight of this level. Are the teams self-supporting? Can you get sponsorship, or do you need a backer? What's tier 2 cycling like?
It's very difficult. I mean, cycling is going. There's some great sponsors out there, and that invest in a lot of money, which is great for the sport. Unfortunately, not a lot of people invest in youth, and not a lot of people are willing to put money in youth, because they consider this maybe as not as big exposure, return on the investment. but to me, it's really fundamental. There's some brands out there I think that could really beneficial to invest in the youth and be promoting youth. We're lucky that we have Mr. Berman that is our title sponsor and basically uh, help us create a team and sustain a team that he wish he could have around when he was a young cyclist in the United States. And he didn't have the opportunity, and thanks to his firm, he was able to put some money into it and to promote. But we unfortunately next year we might have to move down and to go to a third division team because money's lacking, and we're looking for sponsor, and we're looking for more investor to give those guys international exposure and to give an opportunity to race at a higher level.
And you've been there from the start. You helped found the team, is that right?
Well, I didn't help found the team. I was asked to run the team.
Okay.
Lance founded the team, really. He really, when he decided to make a comeback, he made a phone call to John Burke at Trek and said, let's start a development team and let's have Axel run it. And that's really how it started. And then he called me. So the real story is that I was approached by a different team to run the development team, and Lance got wind of it and didn't like it. So he called me up and he said, what is it that you're going to do? I said, well, I'm looking for a new goal in my life, and that's what I want to do. And he said, give me 4 days and I'll find you money. And 4 days later, he gave me a call and he said, have at her, see what you can do, basically.
That's pretty impressive.
It was
not everybody can pull strings like that.
That's who he is. That's how he is, and that's unbelievable. I mean, some stories I can tell you some stories that are unbelievable. Like it comes out of nowhere sometimes.
Just as an aside, I remember when he came back in 2009, and I was on the hillside in Verbier when Contador dropped him.
Oh yeah,
that was one of the great Tour moments.
Yeah,
yeah, amazing memory. Sorry, a detour. What is team management like? What are the big problems you encounter? What are the challenges? What are the rewards?
Well, the rewards is the results. The rewards is riders being picked up by our team and going to the World Tour, which is, I think we're at 32 now in 10 years.
Who've stepped up to the next tier.
So that's something that I'm really, really proud of. And I mean, the challenges are the finances, which is...
But that's true of teams at the top, isn't it?
It's true of teams at the tops, but it makes a big difference when you have 10 or 15 million compared to when you have sometimes $800,000 or $1 million. You know, that. But I think in a way it's also a good school. Like I'm way more prepared now than I was when I started 11 years ago. I had no clue what I was doing, basically. I had great mentorship along the way. Lance had a really good management group, and one of them is Bart Nags. And he was the one that basically started it with me, and he kind of helped me and kind of mentored me the first few years and give me a push in the back. It's like, you can do this. You can. He always says, be Belgian, don't be Canadian. You got to be a little tougher. Stop being Canadian, be more Belgian, and I still laugh about it when I think about it. But I learned a lot from him, and dealing with small budgets teach you a lot of things. It's always easy to spend money, but you can't spend money you don't have, and it's good. So when you have a bit more money, you're more careful about it. You know how to manage it better, and as an athlete, you look at your bike against the team car before the race, and your job is to get on it and to race. And then now as a team manager, you gotta make sure the bike is already there and is in proper shape, and you are ready to jump on it to go race.
Which is harder, athlete or manager?
No, it's different. You can't compare both. I mean, you're I find as a manager, you're responsible for the livelihood of a lot of people also, and you have staff and stuff like that. As an athlete, you're responsible for your own. You're responsible for your family, obviously, because you want to provide for your family, and you have ambition. You have goals. You want to win races. You want to create something as a team manager. You obviously you still want to provide for your family. You still have those things, but you want to keep this thing going, because you have people that you pay and you put on salary, and the day it's over, they'll have to find something else. But At the same time, the people management, it can be very complicated too. I mean, you have to get along with 16 riders plus right now we probably have 8 or 9 staff member, and you got to make a team out of it. You got to set the example. I always have a feeling and a mentality that I have is that it starts with the top in a way. And not that I think I'm considering myself above everybody else, but you set the tone of the spirit of the team and the attitude and the atmosphere, and that will relate to the staff, that will relate to the riders, and their interaction with the sponsors, with the fans. I think it's something that is very important at a young age, and if you can teach them that, they'll be great athletes and they'll be great ambassadors for cycling in general.
It sounds like the challenge of being a manager is not greater in a way, in that there's more to it. It seems like a more rounded role. Do you find it more stimulating overall than being an athlete?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is, because you need to create interaction with the riders, the staff, the sponsors, the public, and you got to make sure that you have some results along the way. And you got to plan the next season. You have to anticipate what's going to happen. You get a couple curveball thrown at you once in a while. Obviously, it's people that let you down where you don't think they would have let you down, but that's part of life. I think that's a great school of life, and it taught me to keep moving and to keep pushing forward. And no matter what happens in your life, you gotta keep your head high and keep going.
Well, speaking of keeping going, you said you're a cycling lifer, probably. Where is the sport now? Where do you feel it's going? I guess. Where is it right now? Where's the sport?
Cycling is and will always be one of the top sport in the world. I mean, you just have to go to 3 weeks in France and see the people around the road. You just have to watch the Tour of Italy and see the crowds. I was at Tour of Yorkshire with our team this year, and it was British weather. It was 8 degrees and pouring rain, and it was people out there on the side of the road cheering the guys on, and that to me is something that you and not like they bought a ticket. It was voluntary to be there to cheer for the riders, and I think that's something that is so powerful, and that people kind of forget how powerful this sport can be for the general public. It's a free sport. It's a free, friendly, popular sport. Anybody can do it, and you can see your favorite athletes. Really, you can interact with them on regular occasion through the season if you're willing to commit to it.
So, what do you think the future might hold for you? Are you in this job long term? Would the ambition be to step up to a tier 1, or do you like the development element of what you do?
That's a very difficult question. I love what I do. I really enjoy the development side of things. I think we've created something very special and very unique. I'd like to keep it going as long as I can. Now, having said that, if somebody would come to me and propose me something on a different level, I mean, I would consider it. I'm not going to say no. I would be willing to share my passion with a sponsor out there that is willing to do something very powerful. But I will never leave development down. Like in a way, I would do it if I could create something from the grassroots up. Really create a school of cycling in a way, just where you can monitor the riders from the, I would say, grassroots in general to the professional cycling, and just kind of own every single step. If I would have one dream, I have many dreams, but one dream of being a manager is be able to do something like that. But as you can imagine, that require a big sponsor and quite a lot of commitment from a sponsor.
It's a lot of commitment from you as well. I mean, how much are you away in a year nowadays?
Well, it's not too bad right now on the development side. It's going pretty good, and I have great staff. I have 2 team directors that I trust a lot, and are actually good friends of mine. And then Jeff Lauder and Koos Moernout, which was my roommate for many years. And I can be away from the races and totally trust them 300%, which is awesome. And it's very, we're very grateful to have them on my side. Because this year has been a special year for us as a family, and we had to. I had to take a step back for a little bit for medical reason, but other than that, my kids are growing up. My oldest daughter is going to university, and my youngest daughter is turning 14. So we'll see what the life brings me. But I'm not saying that I'm dying to go and travel the world and to have a great team, because that's not my life goal. But I think I was not expecting to be doing this 11 years ago also. So here I am.
Here you are, yeah. Well, as I said at the start, beautiful house, beautiful view, lovely family. It's not too bad.
No,
Life's been pretty good.
Yeah, I've been really blessed and lucky in my life to have the support of friends, family, and I have a great family around me, and I'm really blessed about that.
Thank you to Axel for his time and hospitality. We rely on people giving up their time to talk, and it is much appreciated when they do, especially when they're as engaging and open as Axel. Before we go, don't forget that you can get quick bike insurance quotes now at bicmo.com and use the code WINNINGMENTALITY to get an exclusive 5% discount or £20 cycle surgery voucher when you take out a policy. That is all from us this week, but do stay tuned for more sporting insight, and if you've got a spare minute in the meantime, please drop us a quick iTunes review and help us share these stories. Thanks for listening, and speak to you soon.